But I said it works sort of. I mean, there's quite often a person might be a regional director, but they might also be chairing one of the lead committees of CAMRA, but they may also take an active part in their own local branch. And even members of our national executive are also active at their local branch, so they're not remote. So it's it's quite quite well mixed. So you don't have the national executive as remote from what's happening in the campaign in general. And by and large, it seems to work. It helps that we've now got, I think, quite a few people who are employed full-time, who have been there for some time, and understand the mechanisms of government and how to put out publicity and these other things. And so they help the volunteers. Whereas 25 years ago there were very few full-time staff, and we were lucky that we had some members in our national executive who had jobs that allowed them to take lots of time off to do work for CAMRA. They tended to be university lecturers or people in various positions of power that could afford to put a jacket on the back of the chair so it looked as if they were in the office, and then go off and do CAMRA work for a day or two. That's not so easy these days, because very few of our directors, they still put in an awful lot of time, but they've also got full-time jobs, and it's obviously more difficult for them to, say, act as the CAMRA's national spokesperson and be on television or radio 3 or 4 days a week. Paula, who is our chairman, she actually teaches in a junior school, young people, and so she doesn't really have any time during term time to actually appear on the radio or television. So I mean, that's often done by either myself or Mike Benner, our chief executive, or perhaps one or two of our other national executive members who have got a little bit more time. But we try and encourage our local branch people to do that sort of thing with the media at a local level, appear on the local radio station. We try and build up their skills of writing press releases, talking to the media, being able to conduct TV and radio interviews.
So in Goodbeer Club we don't have any employees.
No.
So just we have a headquarters, and actually we have 10, maybe 10 people so in office, but it's not full time.
No.
They have got other job, and just once a month or something, we gather and talking about Goodbeer Club. So I think it's one of the problems. So if we don't employ, we cannot do many things.
It's what's called chicken and egg. You need to be big enough to employ people to help you grow, but you can't employ people until you grow big enough. And we had the same thing. We didn't employ anyone at all until after a year and a half, 2 years. We suddenly grew very rapidly because there were 1 or 2 stories on the television and lots of people wanted to join. And so we eventually got 1 person, and then we found we needed about 4 people just to deal with the people applying for membership. And so yeah, it'll grow. The only other group within, say, the European Beer Consumers Union, our federation of national beer groups, the only other organisation I think that's got any significant number of full-time employees is the Danish organisation, and they've got about 10,000 members.
10,000 members.
And that's in the Danish Beer Enthusiasts, or Danska Ulentuasta, the Danish Beer Enthusiasts. And they, I think, have got about 4 or 5 full-time employees.
So after you are a member, we have 10,000 members. You employ
well, well, I don't know. It could be any number. It depends how you.
Maybe there are articles in your history, camera's history.
Yes. Yes.
In the article, there might be the answer.
Yes, I mean it's about 1974. I think we employed our first. We started in 71, 74. We employed our first employee, and then shortly after that, we'd probably grown to 5 or 6 employees. When I joined in 1989, we had about probably about 17,000 members, and we had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We had about 10 or a dozen members of staff then. We've now grown to 104,000, and we've got about 28 staff. And quite a few of those members of staff are employed in our membership department and our finance department, because with 104,000 individual members, actually just all the changing and keeping up with their details takes up some time. And with 200 branches and with monies coming in and out, you need people employed in the finance side. So the admin part does grow quite a lot when you get a large number of members.
Oh, I see. And by the way, we've got 2 big festivals. And how many Japanese members so far? Cameras members? Do you know?
I don't off the top. I'm sorry. It reminds me, I could have looked it up, but I don't know.
Could you tell me later?
I will. If I don't tell you, remind me with an email. I know. I just think there's maybe 10 or 20 members, but that's just a figure off the top of my head. I mean, we don't organise abroad because we feel people abroad should organise it in their own country too.
I think so.
I mean, we've probably got a couple of 2,000, maybe slightly more than 2,000 members outside the UK. Yes. Now some of those may be, British people who are just working temporarily abroad, but there's also quite a few who join because they want to read what's brewing, get the information. So we have several hundred people in North America, and there's quite a few people in places like Belgium, the Netherlands, and other European countries close to the UK. And then we got reasonable numbers of people in Australia and New Zealand, and I'd say we possibly may have about 20 or so in Japan and other countries there where there's a growing interest in new breweries, craft brewing, and that. So I think that's where the thing is growing.
But the main person is from this country.
The main membership here, this is what we are basically organised as a UK organisation, but of course we can join elsewhere. But as I said, for tax purposes, our National Tax Authority considers that CAMRA is just what they call one body corporate. All our finances are in the centre. So all our branches shouldn't keep surplus funds. Any surplus funds should be remitted to CAMRA nationally, so that we are charged corporation tax on that. No, I mean. On value-added tax, which is a different tax, our branches, if they are large enough, may well pay value-added tax. Say if they're running a big beer festival. I'm not sure whether York Festival is big enough to pay VAT. I know St Albans is, because it does go over a limit, and certainly Norwich and Cambridge beer festivals and Peterborough beer festival, they're big. So they'll pay VAT locally, but their profits after that will be remitted to Camera HQ, on which corporation tax is paid. But of course, if any branch wants a loan to set up a beer festival, then the money will come from Camera HQ out to the branch, and hopefully that beer festival will be successful, so more money will come back. And what we do is we have scrutineers who look at the finances of every local beer festival to make sure that they're not being over-optimistic. So that, because if several of our local beer festivals made a big loss of money, the whole campaign would be bankrupt. So before a local branch can run a festival, they have to have their budget approved by a Camera scrutineer. So that's how we try and control the money. So we don't stop people running beer festivals, and we put a lot of effort into helping them run it, because of course there's an awful lot of legislation involved in selling alcohol in this country, and so yeah, applying for licenses or temporary events notices. There's health and safety issues. There's risk assessments to be done, and then of course the whole setting up of the structure, and it's all done by volunteers.
And you don't want to include the abroad member, do you?
What?
You don't want to include the member from abroad, do you?
Well, I mean, we accept membership from abroad, but we don't want to. We can't organise abroad. So what we say to people who are living abroad, yes, join Camera, get all the publications, but it's great if you can set up your own beer society there, because you understand what the situation is there, you understand what the problems are, you know, you're on the ground, and you can also talk with local people. I mean, we occasionally have people in America saying, oh, why can't we start a Camera chapter in America? And I say, well, I thought the small dispute we had in 1776 was because you wanted independence, and I don't think your government over there would appreciate some limeys coming over from the UK to the US telling them what to do. It's far better for you to lobby as you know, a national or a statewide organisation to do that, because it's far more impact. And obviously, I say this is why we joined up with other groups in Europe to lobby the European Parliament and the European Commission, because it was just the UK lobbying, it would just feel like special pleading. But if we can show that beer drinkers throughout the whole of Europe feel the same way, it's far more powerful when you're talking to people in the European Commission and the European Parliament. So sometimes you've got to think global, sometimes you've got to think local. It depends what.
So in the event, I'm thinking we put some booth for stool for Camera.
We could certainly give information about our campaign and everything else, and hopefully from that people at the Good Beer Club can learn from it and actually become more active themselves. I mean, we find this we use as an information source and for an inspiration source as well as an information source. But I mean, I think moving on from that, I think it's still you do need to organise and campaign locally as well, because you actually understand. I mean, I don't know how many breweries there are in Japan now. I've got a rough idea, but I mean, I don't understand all the problems that a small brewer in Japan has trying to get their beer into pubs and bars and liquor stores in Japan. I don't understand labelling legislation in Japan, what you can and can't do. I don't, you know, all these sorts of things. It's really up to people on the ground to do it. But certainly we can provide information for you, and as I say, as for information and inspiration, I think.
So I'm thinking some in the event some booth, Camera's booth, and we introduce Camera. So let's join Camera.
What a surprise!
I thought one idea, but through this talk, you